Hi guys and welcome back to DreamHack Hearthstone Grand Prix here in Jönköping, Sweden. My name is Nimsh and I'm here with Slugg and Firebat, and I'm sure you want to have an answer for us. But DreamHack at the moment is writing an official statement about the match that was ongoing. So Maverick versus Frozen is, I believe, going to get postponed for the moment, but we'll get to you when we have more information. But we have this new exciting match for you guys, which is Superjj versus Slugg. So what do we know about this, guys?
I mean, JJ, everyone knows everything about JJ by this point. He hardly needs going over. He's Mr. Top 8 at this point, goes deep in every tournament that he plays in. Absolute animal of consistency, and it comes from one thing, which is just the amount of practice he puts in. It's basically just Hearthstone, gym, Hearthstone. That's his routine throughout the day, and he practices in the right way as well, and it's showing, it's paying off in his tournament results. So he's an absolute monster at this point.
Definitely. And Firebat, what do you know about Slugg?
I do not know too much about Slugg. I haven't had the pleasure of casting, I think, any of his games yet. So I haven't had the first-hand experience of seeing what exactly is going on with Slugg or like how he plays really. Because you know the deck lists kind of, but then when you actually get to see a player play, you can see their tendencies that they make in the lines. Because there's so many ways you can play a Hearthstone game and have the ability to win, right? There's different routes of taking it as far as like value plans, tempo plans, your aggression or not. But I don't know anything about Slugg, so I'm really excited to get in there and see what's going on. Do you have any sort of insider knowledge about Slugg at all?
Yeah, this is his second DreamHack, and he's also streaming in English. So, well, he's not known yet, but now going into Superjj, if he wins, he's going to definitely get a name for himself. But the game is starting right now, so the casters are Slugg and Firebat. Guys, have fun.
Thank you so much. And straight away, you see one of the interesting twists that JJ has in his rogue list. He's playing a Shadow Step in place of a Cold Blood, and I was talking to Nimsh off air about the reasoning for this, and it's a strange choice because, you know, Shadow Step is almost strictly a damage card, same way as Cold Blood is. Shadow Step maybe has the potential to be less of a dead card sometimes. You can use it to redraw an Azure Drake, get value out of SI7 Agent, but at the same time, those Cold Bloods don't have to go with Leroy either. They can set up the really aggressive just Tomb Pillager Jam Face for 9 plays. So what do you feel about the Shadow Step versus Cold Blood plan?
I feel like it's a lot better against very specific decks. I think it's a lot better against Freeze Mage. I think it's sometimes worse against things like Hunter, for example, because just cold-blooding something and jamming it into the face and making them have to deal with it. The decks that have kind of choppy removal that's a little bit clunky, like jamming Cold Blood on things is so good against those specific decks. But against board-centric control decks like Zoo and Shaman, it's not so great because they, generally speaking, have minions to trade up or removal that's pretty efficient. So the Shadow Step to be able to get extra value against Zoo and Shaman is really smart. And as we've seen so far in the tournament, there's a lot of players with Zoo and Shaman, so
Well, makes sense, but unfortunately, as you said, one of the matchups where it's probably not quite as good is Hunter, and Hunter is the matchup that he's queued into first, but he does pick up the Backstab, and opening hand Backstab is pretty fantastic in every matchup, but particularly against Hunter, where they don't have resilient early drops. Backstab is basically an auto kill on anything they're going to play until turn 2.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's able to take out the 1-drops, all of them, and almost all of the 2-drops takes out like 4 out of the 6 possible 2-drops. Sometimes you see Hunters like wiggling in the Flame Jugglers, but it's definitely more common to have the 3-2s there. This juggle off the huge toad could be kind of impactful, but it's not a big deal either way if the Thalnos dies. But obviously you prefer it to be alive. Yeah,
of course, Thalnos on the board is a recurrent threat, and it's a way away from interacting with that Kodo that's just been drawn. But regardless of whether the Blood Mage, lived or not this turn, you're almost certain to see Pillager coming down, especially with Gadgetzan in hand. Now a second one being drawn, so the hand is a little bit clunky right now, but that coin is going to help tie things together quite nicely after the Pillager Death Rattle goes off.
Always feels great playing Pillager onto an empty board. Rogue's typically pretty favored in the matchup just because the removal kit's so smooth against Hunter. You saw the Backstab getting the early tempo. And following up with just minions doesn't feel that bad. Once you're ahead, that's when these minions really shine. If you're behind and you have to play minions into the Hunter's board, it feels awful. But being ahead, having initiative, being able to just throw down Tomb Pillager into Azure Drake feels really, really good.
Sure does. What doesn't feel too great is dropping Infested Wolf into a Deadly Poison. There's the 1/1s are around, but suddenly a Fan of Knives comes out. You're extremely sad, and even this Backstab that JJ has now, he has potential to start really flooding with the Violet Teacher right now if he wants to.
Yeah, he could go with the Violet Teacher this turn. I kind of still just like the Azure Drake.
Drake Backstab?
Yeah, I don't even know if you even have to Backstab. You could save that for Gadgetzan Auctioneer, but he is going to go with the Violet Teacher, take the most aggressive, most tempo-oriented line on the board. So yeah, it's interesting. You had the 2 different potentials there. There's the value play of just Azure Drake and maybe ignore the wolf or pop the wolf if you feel, and then the tempo play of playing the Violet Teacher. Now there's the question of the halfway line of play the Violet Teacher and then also hold on to the backstab for gadgets. So it's kind of interesting.
Sure. Even with this, fairly linear hand, not too huge a hand size, and two of the cards are the same thing and they're unplayable with Gadgetzan Auctioneer. Like, even with this small hand size, you can see why, like, experienced Hearthstone players like Rogue so much, because every single obstacle that's put in front of you, you have to consider 3 or 4 different options, the implications for future turns. He is going to go ahead and start flooding here, and I'm personally, this is the play that jumped out at me straight away. I really like just, making the most awkward board possible against Hunter, and since that Tomb Pillager goes into Eaglehorn bow range, you're going to get a coin in the near future if you really need to start cycling those Gadgetzans at some point in the near future.
Yeah, the coin will definitely allow him to get plenty of value. He also has the Azure Drake to fall back on to get value in that sense. And Slugg is not going to have it. He's going to be able to take care of most of these minions here, cleaning up the board and holding up decently
That's
on the board.
conceal. Oh, baby.
Well, so much for that. Now you get the value, the tempo, you get the whole toolkit here by going at Gadgetzan Auctioneer, Coin Conceal, one of the strongest plays in Rogue. Hunter has sometimes the deadly shot that can interact with this, but other than that, they're usually left pretty much in the dark.
Yeah, and this is where, after considering all your options on the previous turn for a while, you feel like a genius, because now even if there was a deadly shot, that 1/1 that you generated from the backstab is giving you the buffer. Now, I'm not saying that makes it the right play, but it's a definite feels-good man moment as a player when you get into a situation like this after thinking so hard about a previous turn.
And no deadly shot for Slugg, no way to interact with Gadgetzan Auctioneer, so in this sort of spot, what do you do? Staring at a concealed Gadgetzan Auctioneer. You can't concede because it's a tournament, right? So
He goes for the Princess Huaran, which is a card that's somewhat unique in Hunter lineups. It was a card that showed, like, a lot of people thought was quite promising when it was announced. Just this big, aggressive 6/5 minion that allowed you to get value out of a lot of the efficient cards. That, Hunter is one of the few classes left with kind of decent death rattles available to them exclusively. They get to play Huge Toad because of the Beast tag. They have the Infested Wolf, which is kind of an extra death rattle that everyone else doesn't have access to. On top of course, Savannah Highmane. So people thought that Princess Huaran offered a lot of promise, but it's not a card that we've seen being used really since Standard has been more than a couple of days old.
Sure, yeah. It wasn't very impressive here.
No, it definitely was not.
Maybe not the matchup Slugg's really looking for with it. He would have preferred maybe Stranglethorn Tiger being one of his 5-drop choices so that JJ would be unable to cycle as much with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer because he wouldn't have any targets for the removal spells, but unfortunately, that's not the cards he was dealt, so now he has to try and figure out how to remove this Gadgetzan Auctioneer with no removal cards in hand, or what is the best play for him to try and set up to win the game. Typically, you want to be racing your opponent in this situation, but none of his cards are even racy cards.
Yeah, he just has generally clunky minions on the board. He could have gone for the 1-in-3 Animal Companion Huffer that then trades with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, but evaluates that that's not a winning line in any world. So he just tries to go for the maximum board presence. He's essentially played out a 3-5 and a 3-3 on this turn to try and contest the board the more honest way, but when you keep just playing minions into a Gadgetzan Auctioneer, you can almost guarantee they are just going to quickly disappear one by one, regardless of how many you play.
Yeah, he's really hoping JJ, I guess, just hits blanks and doesn't have that many spells to cycle off the Gadgetzan Auctioneer. We do know that JJ is playing a lot of minions in his deck. We see double Farseer in his hand.
Yeah.
So a bit more minions than Standard Rogue, so it's possible that maybe there's no spells to go with this Gadgetzan Auctioneer, and Slugg can just fight for the board honestly, like you said, and get a good Call of the Wild the following turn and recover from that. So I like the line. I think it's much better than just going for the Huffer and Prey line, because that just waltzes into...
I totally agree. Wow, this is super aggressive. The double Auctioneer draw. I was going to say, like, even in an emergency, the Auctioneer hasn't attacked yet, right? So even in an emergency, if he'd have sapped and hit the brick that he would have hit there with the Leroy, he could have done sap, Farseer your Gadgetzan, trade with the 3-3, Farseer your Gadgetzan again to bring it back to 4-4. But he went all in, got a fresh Gadgetzan on the board, and Call of the Wild is almost certainly going to come out, and now we will see Huffer trading with a Gadgetzan Auctioneer just a turn later than he had the possibility for.
He's cleaned up both Gadgetzan Auctioneers, and JJ hasn't hit very much cycle. Honestly, like, those Gadgetzan Auctioneers drew, what, like a total of 3 or 4 cards, really?
So he cast Coin Conceal and then Sap with 2, so 4 cards.
4 cards, yeah. Yeah, so JJ could potentially start fizzling out, because Rogue's a deck that runs so many cards that aren't minions, that are just like these cheap removal spells that you really want to hit with Gadgetzan Auctioneer.
Yeah.
So I feel like Slugg's game plan at this state has to be trying to just remove every minion and get to a spot where JJ's hand is just cheap spells, but at only 14 life,
Yeah.
it's really hard to do. And being Hunter also is not the greatest deck for that sort of game plan.
Yeah, even if he tries to go long here and starts trying to win a war of attrition on the board, Leroy's Shadow Step is going to have something to say about this very soon in the future, and there is still that Cold Blood remaining in the deck as well. On top of Eviscerates, I believe. Have you seen any Eviscerates played so far? I don't think so, right?
Right, I don't think so. So yeah, a lot of potential damage coming out from JJ. There is going to be that big taunt the way he has seen a sap already, but an Eviscerate or a sap or a Shadow Strike here from JJ would be absolutely backbreaking. Just able to take care of that 6/6. So I imagine he starts off with the Drake here, tries to find it.
Shiv, it looks like. Yep.
Shiv?
So that's a 3 damage Shiv right off the bat.
Yeah, shiving the Misha would remove your ability to potentially Shadow Strike it.
Yeah.
And your Eviscerates and Sap already deal with it.
Yep.
So I definitely think it's the Shiv on the Houndmaster and
Totally
try and
agree.
figure out what to do next from there. But he is maybe prepping the Shiv, just so in case he doesn't hit something, he can Shadow Step the Drake.
Very possible. Also, with both Gadgetzans gone, the utility of the prep is diminished a little bit, especially when he now picks up a second one. So no real harm in using it. Is he considering just Leroying the 6/6? He is.
Okay. I like it. Get it out of the way. And then you can trade off one of the whelps, go probably face with the 4/4. Start pushing for that lethal damage.
Yep, just down to a lowly 1/1 on the board, which isn't going to get anywhere with these 4/4 Drakes. The King's Elec is drawn. Is there any impactful minion that he can draw right now? There's definitely some spells that would help him out, but the Elec will only help him to draw a minion, and even the big power cards like Savannah Highmane at this point are just not really going to be too effective.
Does he run Ragnaros?
He does not. No, that would definitely get the job done, yeah.
Infested Wolf, even if he had one to juggle, it's not really doing anything, and you got to feel pretty dead. There's no lethal on the board for JJ, but there is 9 damage, and he is Rogue. So Rogue can typically find that 1 damage, and even if he doesn't, having double spell power present on the board is pretty disgusting.
This is just minions. I've never seen so many minions in a Miracle Rogue deck. Double Farseer, double Pillager, double Drake. He has the Shiv in there as well, so what is he losing? That's my question.
The 1-mana spells, right? He's losing like the Cold Blood he kind of replaced with the
Shadow Step. Yeah.
He's probably only running 1 Conceal, right? So, well, that's 1 card.
Sure. Got him. Got him. So yeah, he's just going to go ahead and Shadow Step his Drake. As I said, once the Leroy's gone, this Shadow Step is just a card that you can basically use to rebuy heals, rebuy card draws, rebuy the Battle Cry of SI7 Agent, or the combo effect of SI7 Agent, I should say. Now the Cold Blood is picked up, but he's just straight back where he was, being 1 damage off lethal since he's already committed the attack for one of the Drakes. Yeah,
he was really hoping to try and find an Eviscerate there, which would seal out the game, but it's not really a big deal. He can still like Cold Blood this turn if he wants to, and play double Farseer, so
I like it.
To heal himself up out of any potential lethal range, set up his own lethal, and just have this massive board presence.
And yet again, there it is, exactly. Savannah Highmane may have been useful at some point in the mid-game turns once that sap had been used and he'd able to stabilize after the Gadgetzan turns, but it just came down way too late. JJ was able to re-establish pressure way too easily, and the Rogue is going to pick up a win for JJ, meaning he just has his his Priest and Warrior left, and these are 2 of the most unique decks in the tournament. I think the Cthulhu Priest and the Pirate Warrior lineup from JJ.
Yeah, but we are going to see him continue playing the Rogue, though, for just a little bit longer.
Oh, wait, yeah, I was talking Conquest for some reason. Thank you. Thank you for covering my idiocy, Firebat.
So we have Slugg left with the Warlock and the Warrior, and seeing how well that lines up against Rogue. Typically speaking, Control Warrior, Cthulhu Warrior, both not the greatest matchups for Rogue. Cthulhu Warrior is a lot better than Control Warrior. Sometimes it can outlast the Rogue's entire amount of damage, but the thing about JJ's deck is the minion presence. So many minions. We saw it last game demonstrated. It's just eventually the Warrior player usually runs out of removal. Those minions start sticking if you maybe get a Cold Blood Conceal going on, but the tech of the Shadow Step, this is one of the matchups where that hurts. That hurts a little bit. You definitely prefer to have another Cold Blood because you can get in those situations where you can double Cold Blood something, jam it to the face, conceal it. The Warrior can't do anything. They maybe have to go for a YOLO Brawl. If you win the Brawl, you hit him in the face again with the double Cold Blood, adding more damage than the Shadow Step would have added.
I'm just sad that you guys missed the accentuation of Firebat's hand gestures during that explanation, because that made it so much better.
Cthulhu, one of the best cards in the matchup. Being able to have Cthulhu is one of your ways to take care of those conceal all-ins. Justicar as well is one of the cards for Slugg that's going to allow him to potentially win this matchup. Just being able to tank up, gain so much armor, and outlast his opponent. And again, Brawl, another pretty great crucial card. He's got all of the best cards towards the mid-end game, but none of the early game. Just needing that War Axe to be able to clean up 3 threes, and then he would be in a terrific spot. So JJ going to be throwing out the SI7 here, and just hoping Slugg doesn't have the War Axe, and we can see he doesn't have the War Axe, so that's going to start chipping away at that armor rather quickly. Yeah,
it really is, because he's missing the weapons and the bashes primarily. He's going to be in trouble against this kind of just 2 simple early minions, SI into Tomb Pillager. He has drawn the Shield Slam now, which can help him deal with one of the threats. Even if the armor is depleted, next turn he will be able to shield block, shield slam the Tomb Pillager if it comes out like that, but that will still leave the 3-3 beating away on the board afterwards. So.
Oh, he opts to go over the shield block this turn. It's really aggressive with the cycle, but I guess he figures the armor will still stick around next turn, at least a little bit, so he can take care of the Tomb Pillager if it were to come out. Or the Violet Teacher. He's taking 3-4 damage with the dagger, so he goes down to 3 armor, and then he can armor up and then be able to shield slam any potential 4-drop coming out for JJ. Unless...
Cold Blood SI7 is looking like the potential play. He's bailed out, though, which is a slight mistake on JJ's part in terms of revealed information, because he just pointed a spell at his own dude. There is exactly 2 cards in the deck that he'd do that with, and only 1 that he'd do before attacking with it. So you've pretty much turned that card face up in your hand at this point.
Yeah, so Slugg's going to be aware that that Cold Blood is there. JJ's just seeing that shield block. He's thinking, all right, my opponent maybe doesn't have a shield slam, or if I'm able to knock off all the armor, I can prevent my minion from being shield slammed. So he's thinking about maybe cold blooding the SI7, jamming it to face, jamming the dagger to face, and then playing maybe a 4-4 Edwin, but is going to abandon that plan, just drop the Tomb Pillager, and maybe read the shield block as potentially that Slugg doesn't have shield slam in his hand.
Shield Bearer picked up now, but as you said, Slugg assessed the situation correctly, knew that he would have the shield slam to fall back on here. He does also have the Disciple of Cthulhu execute line available to him, but while there's a 2-1 dagger, a 1-1 dagger staring him in the face, that doesn't seem too great, but it looks like he is going to go down that line. Do you like this over the shield slam?
I do think you need to find time to fit in these Disciples of Cthulhu, because you want to be getting Justicar down on 6, and you want to be gaining 10 life on 7.
Sure.
So that leaves you turn 4 and turn 5 to get a Disciple of Cthulhu down. So getting it down here with either the Shield Slam or the Execute, I would prefer the Shield Slam with it if you are getting it down still, just because there's... Your armor's only going to be around for a little bit longer, because you're not removing the board completely. So I wouldn't have mind Disciple of Cthulhu Shield Slam or Armor Up Shield Slam. I just feel like you have to be using the Shield Slam.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, my counterpoint was about to be, you know, if we don't Shield Slam now, what are we Shield Slamming on 8? Like, based on the look of the hand?
Yeah,
like,
that's how it would go.
Yeah, so okay, Disciple of Cthulhu Shield Slam definitely would have made sense, but I'm not a fan of the Execute play at all. But in the end, he does just go back to the Armor Up Shield Slam line, which, as you said, now does leave these Disciples of Cthulhu stranded in his hand a little bit, but he's got enough mana to potentially play both of them in one turn coming up soon. Say if the rogue whiffs on a minion here, then suddenly coin Disciple is actually a pretty good turn. Then you have your Justicar Shield Bearer curve.
Sure, yeah, it's not too bad. You oftentimes want to be saving the coin though for Cthulhu, because usually if you're able to live to getting Cthulhu down, you're going to win this matchup, because Rogue can't really deal with it. Like, they sap it, it comes back. They have to, like, Shadow Strike, double eviscerate it or something to be able to kill it most of the time. So if you save the coin until turn 9 and get Cthulhu out 1 turn earlier, that, generally speaking, increases your chance of living to when you can play Cthulhu, because you're buying yourself a turn that way.
And it looks like JJ has decided that we are going all the way in this turn. Prep Fan Cold Blood Edwin holds onto the coin, so he still has some cycle with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer. That is an 8-8 Van Cleef being committed to the board. The turn after he's seen 1 spot removal being used. On top of that, he's split up his threat accordingly, so we can't just focus on the 8-8 as Slugg here. You have to address that 7-3 as well.
Yeah, it's pretty well done by JJ there, just, as you said, diversifying the threats, and Slugg can't kill both of them. He's got to pick one that he wants to destroy, and it looks like he's picking the SI7 as of now. Maybe with the Disciple of Cthulhu out there, and then trying to execute the Edwin on the following turn.
Another 8 damage is a big deal here, but that is 1 Cold Blood committed. So the max reach from an empty board now, you know, barring extra eviscerates on top, is just Leroy and the Shadow Step. So Again, with the amount of life gain in hand, if an efficient answer is found for the Edwin, which he does have with the second Disciple and the Execute, and he's able to keep this board under some level of control, then he may be able to stabilize going forward. But JJ's done a great job here of just not giving the Warrior time to do exactly what you've been describing the whole time, which is, you know, have time to just play your Justicar, play your Shield Bearer, etc. Get your Cthulhu buffed up, and then eventually get to Cthulhu. So JJ recognizes he has to get this over and done with as quickly as he can.
And he's always been keeping 2 minions in the field, which is really great against Warrior, because Warrior's really good at killing one thing. They're not that great at killing 2 minions at the same time, so I really like just making sure that you pretty much always are having 2 minions out there, so Warrior's removing one, the other one's punching him in the face, and the cycle continues. Now we see him commit the Violet Teacher. It might walk a little bit into Brawl, but if you're brawling, you're not playing Ancient Shield Bearer, and that works in JJ's favor a little bit, if he's able to actually pick up the Leroy and the burn to follow through with it. But
sure does, but he looks like he's going to hold on to the Eviscerate here. Just leave the Violet Teacher on the board. Like you said, just 2 threats yet again. Doesn't want to play into that Brawl. He's able to deal with one of the minions. This 2-3 is unlikely to be relevant in terms of breakpoints in clearing your minions, and you've seen 2 Disciple of Cthulhu's and 1 Slam used already. Unfortunately for JJ, the second Slam was drawn, but is that even the play for Slugg here?
he's going to need a top deck off the Slam to really make it the play. It makes me want to use the coin here, even though it's so good to be saving onto it. Oh, he wants to hold on to the coin by the use of the Brawl here. Okay.
Slugg's a dreamer. That's what we've just learned. You said we wanted to learn about his style of play. If he brawls here, we've learned that he is a dreamer.
He is going to forfeit the coin. You can tell he really doesn't want to part with this coin. He was even considering going for the Brawl here. Yeah. But that's how much he just does not want to part with this coin, because of how good it is to get that Cthulhu out a turn earlier and just be a little bit quicker against the Rogue. But ends up having to go for it just to activate his Shield Slam here and take care of the Violet Teacher, so there isn't a flood of tokens. Trades in the 2-3 into the Azure Drake. Why do you think he did that?
So he's expecting, even something simple as a backstab can be used on the 2-3, and then suddenly he doesn't have a spot removal for the Azure Drake anymore. Yeah. So now this way, if his board is removed, even though he won't draw a card from the Slam, he's still able to have a turn of just Slam just a card if he's able to go with that situation. So I like the preemptive attack there because, like you said, Azure Drake left on board means that the chance of Rogue being able to remove everything you play, which is already quite high, becomes very, very likely. Sure,
yeah. A little bit punished for it as the Earthen Ring Farseer #1 from JJ comes out. He does run 2 in the deck list. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that the play is pretty heads up by Slugg, realizing that JJ's been holding on to a lot of cards and is maybe going for a Gadget Sin turn pretty soon, and having 2 backstabs in the deck, being likely to cycle into one, just getting rid of that 2-3, making sure it can try and get value for the Slam, makes a lot of sense.
And a cute play on JJ's part here. He's actually deliberately keeping his dagger charge at 1. He could have done attack re-dagger that turn, which is the play that 999.9 thousand out of 1 million players would have done. But he has obviously scouted out the Harrison Jones in his opponent's list and is trying to deny that value by keeping his dagger charge at 1 at all times.
Sure. And here comes the Gadgets in turn, and without the coin for the Cthulhu, the Gadgets in turn is like right on time to be able to get the Gadgets in and get it concealed before Cthulhu could potentially come out. But he doesn't have great spells to cycle with it. Again, just so many minions in his Rogue deck. They've been doing him so well right now, keeping the board pressure up and being super annoying for Slugg to deal with. And now it's getting kind of awkward. But he does pick up the Deadly Poison to be able to continue cycling. And that dagger charge at 1, though, playing around Harrison has been efficient. As of now, there hasn't been any Harrison in Slugg's hand, but now is when it gets weird.
Yeah. Now is when possible regrets come in, because suddenly that 1 mana 6 damage, or 1 mana 4 damage, depending on how you want to look at it, suddenly turns into 2 or 3. So he's going to looks like pass it up here, and now suddenly we want the 2-charge dagger back up.
Well, it is kind of awkward to play Harrison Jones on this board, just because you're playing Harrison Jones into a Gadget's End, and you would need the spot removal of Shield Slam or an Execute combo to go with it to be able to justify doing so.
Shield Slam picks up the War Axe, so he does now have a way to deny the cycle, but he's strongly considering his options here. Like you said, he's so close right now to that big Cthulhu turn, which, as you said, is often just completely backbreaking against Rogue. JJ's list only plays 1 Sap as well, so, even though Sap is an awful answer to Cthulhu, it's sometimes the best Rogue can do, but even that answer is unlikely to be there because there's only a single copy in JJ's list.
Slugg's health total is quite reasonable. With the Cold Blood already being gone, 15's not the worst in the world. It's definitely not the best health total you could be at here, as there is potential for JJ to have lethal this turn, but not with the cards that he has currently in his hand. So he is going to throw out the Gadgetzan Auctioneer cycle, try and get closer to finding those very important cards that can be setting up lethal this turn, mainly Leroy Jenkins. And we see he forgoes playing SI7 here just to cycle more, get that Eviscerate down, draw more cards, deal more damage to his opponent, set up a board state so that if Cthulhu does come down and clears his board, he has potential chance to kill his opponent.
Yeah, and the Conceal is a big deal here because, so is that Leroy, by the way.
The Leroy,
but
yeah.
the Conceal's a big deal because this Cthulhu is a 12-12, I believe. So with the extra hit of the Fiery War Axe, it's really, really odds-on to clear this board. But asking all 8 out of the 12 shots to hit a minion here is somewhat more unlikely.
Yeah, and Slugg pretty much knows it's over, seeing that JJ has
That's
most
5
of
to
his
face.
deck.
It's 5 to face already. Gadgetzan lives.
Yeah. 7 damage and a Gadgetzan Auctioneer on the board, and more damage in the Rogue deck. Can't feel good about that.
And Leroy comes out. JJ takes the game. Super well played from Superjj in the end there. Really recognizing that he had to go all-out aggression in that game. He was considering the Cold Blood play as early as turn 4 with that Edwin, even though the Cold Blood was only going to get him for 2 instead of 4 because he was using it as his combo activator, not his combo piece. So he was really, really trying to find as early as he could the way to start pushing. Went for it a turn later in the end, but it was enough to just get him over the line in the end.
Yeah, I really like the way he played the matchup, and that's how it's done. A lot of people say that they struggle sometimes with the Rogue against Cthulhu Warrior, and then they hear the pros say, yeah, it's favored for Rogue, it's favored for Rogue, and they're like, no, it's not, I always lose this matchup, and that's how you get it done. That minion pressure, forcing out all of the removal, and just getting in there one turn before Cthulhu, making it so if they play Cthulhu, they're going to die.
Right.
Just being so aggressive, and that was almost as fast as Slugg could get Cthulhu down. And he was just trying to be as defensive as possible to try and get Cthulhu down. And he was trying to hold on to the coin. So he was playing the matchup right as well.
Yep.
Just trying to hold on to the coin. And JJ forced him into a situation where he had to use the coin. Got that out of the way, so Cthulhu was delayed even longer. And just Slugg was just too sluggish getting that Cthulhu down.
Nice. Yeah, I also want to note that like all damage went at face from JJ there as well. The only time he removed minions was with Shadow Strikes and backstabs. The Eviscerates, even when there were minions in play that were threatening to remove his board, he just chucked them at the face and just believed. So he was really pushing through as hard as he could. But now we're coming down to the Zoo being the remaining deck from Slugg. I've remembered its last hero standing this time, Firebat. So that's an improvement. And he's going to have to reverse sweep now with the Zoo Warlock.
Which is possible. Zoo's one of those decks that can reverse sweep, but you're not really happy when you look at JJ's lineup and you see, well, I got to go against Rogue. That's not favored for me. Well, don't worry. Next up, I have to go against Priest. Oh, no, that's not favored for me either. And then Warrior's left. And that one actually, it's the Pirate Warrior.
Yes.
So that one is actually Zoo favored.
Yes,
so it's only 2 uphill battles for the Zoo, but Zoo's one of those decks that if you draw in well, you can beat anything.
You certainly can, but also one of the factors of drawing well is getting some nice outcomes from your Dark Peddler, and the Murloc Corruption option wasn't particularly powerful on that turn. I think Corruption does end up being the right pick because you can choose to interact with minions like Tomb Pillage or Azure Drake by just playing out a Void Walker and saying, sure, hit that, and I'm going to corrupt your minion at the same time so it doesn't get value.
Sure. So JJ's techs, he has the Shadow Step, so he is going to have I guess more removal in a sense, because you can use Shadow Step as a removal, whereas Cold Blood you can't really use as a removal in this matchup. So JJ's techs, you say they're maybe positive or negative for the Zoo matchup?
I think I just about like Shadow Step over Cold Blood in this matchup, maybe by a factor of just a couple of percentiles. But like Cold Blood, again, can definitely get the job done, because you can race Zoo in the right situation. So, but I like Shadow Step. There's a bunch of cards that it has pretty great utility with. Even in Emergency Farseer at the end of the game, it can be pretty spectacular with in the right situation. So I think the Shadow Step will do okay in this matchup.
For sure, for sure. A lot of players tend to think that the Zoo versus Rogue matchup's really like only 55% Rogue favored, and it's really closer to 50-50 if you ask some of the more well-known, prominent Zoo players.
Yeah, I think the Leroy Soulfire damage get you version is a little bit more favored against Rogue because it can just push through. And again, like there are people with much greedier builds of Rogue than what JJ has here, leaving out things like Farseers for extra conceals and so on. So I think JJ has a good setup to be able to. I think JJ has a good setup, and Slugg maybe has a little bit of a suboptimal setup just specifically for this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you too. The Doomguard list not as great against Rogue because one of the strengths of Zoo versus Rogue sometimes is the fact that they don't have very much heal and they don't have very much taunts. So you just go face the whole game, and sometimes you just get him at the end with those Soulfires. But on this turn, usually a turn 4 Argus feels really, really good, but Slugg's thinking about maybe tapping, looking for Abusive Sergeant or something to make the turn a little bit clearer, just because the Argus doesn't set up great trades for him, doesn't really put his board in that great of a position to deal with a 3-3.
Yeah, it does allow him to start ramping the damage to an extent, though. He did get in for 4 that turn, which is progress to a degree, and Superjj's hand a little bit awkward right now. Eviscerate's not exactly what you want to be using on most of these minions. Like, the 2-4 is a reasonable target for it in this matchup, where you're just, you know, kind of pretty desperately trying to scrape control of the board wherever you can. But he's would be really looking for more backstabs, fan of knives, cards along those lines with the Blood Mage in hand. So gonna go ahead and just use the double Eviscerate here, and I like this. Pretty much any time you can create a board that is a number of minions on your side versus 0 minions on the side of Zoo, that's probably the play.
Yeah. Yeah, seems really good there, and we see Slugg like flirting with the idea of just ramming the Doomguard into the 3-3 maybe, knowing that, or maybe even just going face with it, knowing that there are no Eviscerates left in JJ's deck. He could struggle with dealing with the Doomguard, as it is a 5-7. The only card in his deck that really deals with it is maybe Shadow Strike, but if you trade into the Earthen Ring Farseer, you can no longer Shadow Strike it, so
yeah,
that's an interesting play.
On the other hand, Doomguard face gets blown out extremely hard here with the Blood Mage Shadow Strike.
Yeah, I like getting the Imp Gang boss down in the smaller minions, though. Like, he picked up the Doomguard at the beginning of the turn, that's why I was kind of talking about it, but I don't think you can afford discarding this Imp Gang boss. So if you play the Doomguard and discard anything besides the Imp Gang boss, that's great. Sure. But getting Imp Gang boss down is like one of your more powerful minions in your deck, and I feel like you just want to get it down as soon as possible to start generating value off of it. You've seen Eviscerate's gone, so it's a little bit harder to kill the Imp Gang boss. You know your opponent's only running 1 sap because the deck list was available to you, so the Imp Gang boss could be a little bit awkward to deal with and maybe start giving you board control, and your opponent's at 26. It's not the time to go all in on Doomguard, I don't think.
I agree. Azure Drake picked up by JJ, so he now has a little bit of gas in his hand. He was kind of down to that Gadgetzan Auctioneer at one point, but looks like he might be favoring the Blood Mage Shadow Strike play anyway. We're just going to go ahead and Shadow Strike on the Imp Gang boss. It's one of the cleanest answers. Basically, you know, that 3-mana removal option is generally earmarked to interact with the 3-mana threats from Zoo in this matchup, be it Imp Gang boss or Darkshire Councilman. That's generally what you're targeting at. Councilman is, of course, the dream. The Imp Gang boss is good enough for the Shadow Strike to come down on. But now, suddenly, JJ's hand is a little bit slow. It's the kind of hand that Zoo eats up pretty comfortably.
Yeah. It's the kind of hand that does not kill Doomguard, for sure.
Yeah.
So JJ is going to be taking 5 from the Doomguard, and pretty much any way he plays his hand currently is, well, now with the prep, maybe he's able to get something with Gadgetzan Auctioneer to deal with this Doomguard, but you can, generally speaking, expect the Doomguard to connect for another 5. So, do you think it's time to go with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, or do you think JJ has enough time to gather more information about his deck, get more cards, just play Azure Drake, and have 2 extra draws to find spells to go with it, or do you think it's YOLO prep time?
Yeah, I'm really wondering about it. I was trying to consider like potential Edwins as well, but that doesn't work. You don't have anything else to play with the Edwin apart from the coin and the prep. So, you know, making a big enough Edwin to challenge the Doomguard would have been a line that you could go down as well, but he just doesn't have the cards to support that right now. He's going to choose to go with the Azure Drake, and if this trade happens in the way he would like it to, because Drake is a threatening minion that does demand to be removed. If the Doomguard was forced to go into the 4-4, then suddenly starting to Gadgetzan cycle from here will probably a lot of the time pick you up an answer to the Doomguard, less so with Eviscerates gone from your deck, but that's all a formality because the Direwolf Alpha here is going to create havoc.
Yeah, absolute havoc, able to clear it out. The Doomguard still remaining at full health. Slugg really wants to keep that at as high as a health total as possible because JJ's really only answer left in the deck with both Eviscerates gone and the Shadow Strike gone is to sap it. And if you sap a Doomguard, it comes right back at your face.
Yeah, it sure does.
So he doesn't have very great ways to deal with the Doomguard, and the Zoo really has a secure hold on the board. But now, JJ being patient, seeing the extra 2 cards from his deck, the one off the Azure Drake and the one off the top of his deck, he is able to potentially find more spells to go with this Gadgetzan Auctioneer at the expense of just taking 8 face damage, and we'll see if it works out for him. So far, we see if he did YOLO prep with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, he would have hit blanks.
He would, yeah.
So far, it seems good.
Yep, he would have Gadgetzan coined, hit a blank, and then considered whether or not to YOLO the prep. Even if he did, he would have picked up the Leroy Jenkins, so it would not have got him anywhere. But Now it's pretty much desperation time, right? I mean, we can't wait another turn, surely, unless there's a. I mean, SI7 Edwin line is a potential to challenge the Doomguard, but yeah, I think you have to start cycling. I think the time for wait is over, and JJ's just minion-filled rogue deck is coming back to haunt him right now, but it has got him into a great position in this series. And as you said, the Cthulhu Priest versus Zoo is a position you'd kind of want to be in JJ's shoes.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the deck played out there. Do you think that the changes and the extra minions in his rogue deck make him a little bit worse against Zoo?
I mean, it definitely comes down to what he's lost. I'm trying to remember his list exactly. I think he still had, say, I think he still had 2 fans in there, which is one of the cards that you want.
Yeah.
You obviously still have the 2 backstabs. You have all the prep goodness and Edwin, which are also great cards. You have all the spell damage cards. So I'm not sure what he's lost that you would want against Zoo. It's just, you know, it's one of those unfortunate draws where he drew a load of minions, but if that was maybe a more conventional Miracle Rogue list, he would have just drawn a bunch of dead cards anyway, and we would have seen the same thing happen. Yeah.
And conceals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe no fault on the deck there. It's just sometimes you lose against Zoo, and that's why a lot of the top players, especially the ones that play a lot of Zoo, are like, yeah, the matchup's not that bad for Zoo. It's pretty 50-50.
Right.
So we see that being highlighted there. But JJ does have another deck in his lineup that is very efficient against Zoo in the form of this Cthulhu Priest, which he's got a good start with. He's able to get the 2-drop out there to contest the Flame Imp. Not too bad. He also has the follow-up.
This is interesting. Does this signal the intention to Forbidden Shaping for 2 next turn?
I believe it does.
It kind of does, right? Yeah.
Follow up with the Forbidden Shaping into Disciple.
Interesting. I mean, I've seen Stan Sifka playing this deck, and famously on 2 occasions in tournaments so far has Forbidden Shaping for 0 to great effect. Like, he needed a 50-50 because, oh no, of course, because Target Dummy's removed now, right? So you are guaranteed a 1-1 for a 0 mana. Yeah, so he's calculated perfectly that he needed that 1-1 on the board, usually to deal with the threat of Totem Golem is what the situation that came up. So yeah, recognizing when you just need to abandon the high value plan of Forbidden Shaping, and you know, this isn't a matchup where, you know, random 8-drop is going to win you the game. You just need stuff on the board.
Yeah, what's going to win JJ this game is finding Circle of Healing or other AoE cards. Go with like his hand right now. He needs to find like Excavated Evil, Holy Nova if he runs it, or Circle of Healing to go with the Alkanai Soul Priest.
Yeah, just Disciple of Cthulhu at least gets rid of the threat of the Flame Imp, but this board is just food for Imp Gang Boss right now. You can just plow through this quite nicely.
I really like the attack into the Voidwalker there, preventing it from being buffed up to take value trades and still be alive. So
sure.
Yeah, well done on that. Just making sure the Zoo's trades are a little bit awkward for him, but still, Slugg is going to be slowly pulling ahead, and typically speaking, Zoo does that in almost every matchup. There's very few matchups where Zoo doesn't pull ahead in the early game, and it's all about the AoEs in your opponent's deck that kind of pull it back into focus.
Yeah, the Possessed Villager comes down, one of the only resilient minions in the deck against AoE, such as Orkanai Circle. He already has the Imp Gang box, which is another, and he's choosing to hold back here. So even as early as turn 4, it looks like we're testing the waters for Orkanai Circle.
Yeah, it must be expecting that JJ would Alkanai Circle this board. That's the only reason to hold back a minion, is because you believe it's enough on the board to justify Alkanai Circle. So then in Slugg's mind, since he doesn't see Alkanai Circle come out and the turn isn't exceptionally strong, well, it is now exceptionally strong because of the top deck. But if there was no top deck, it wouldn't have been exceptionally strong. So now he has to assume, most likely, there's no Alkanai Circle in JJ's hand.
Yeah, you don't sit there as Slugg and say, okay, my opponent planned to cycle 1 card with the Power Word Shield and draw exactly Shadow Word Pain, and he knew that was going to be better than the AoE. Yeah.
So he shouldn't be really too afraid, unless he's also now afraid of Excavated Evil. That's the joys of playing against Priest, right? They have AoE on 4, they have AoE on 5, they have AoE a lot of times in the stages of the game, so we'll see if he holds back the Flame. He does, testing the waters again for Excavated Evil, feeling like he's got enough minion presence on the board to justify for JJ to use Excavated Evil here. And we'll see if he goes, well, JJ is just going to think, I guess, continue bluffing what cards are in his hand, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no way we're going to see that Orkanai committed to the board. It leaves you with 2 dead cards in your deck at that point. So unless you pick up the second Orkanai, Cabal is able to have a decent impact on this board next turn. And the effect of the slow play, essentially, with the holding back the Flame Imp, you know, that Flame Imp could already have been getting in for 6 by now. So the fact that it's been held back is giving cards like Cabal Shadow Priest a bit more time to have an impact on the game.
And JJ just taking all of this time here to not really think about heal passing, but just to show or pretend to show that he had some decision that turn, not give away that his hand is Shadow Word Death, Cabal.
Yes.
So
Shadow Word Death, not exactly the ideal card in this matchup, but the Cthulhu Priest list that JJ is running and that Sifka has used to good success recently doesn't run any Entombs. So, you know, if one of these Shadow Word Deaths was to be taken out of the deck, probably the first card that would replace it would be an Entomb, which would be even worse in this scenario. So it's not really, again, not really a deck building decision punish in this situation, but this is a board that demands an answer, and the answer is not there for JJ right now.
Yeah, the answer would be AoE, and we saw Slugg hold back minions on turn 4. He's like, if there's Alkanized Circle, I need to be doing this. Need to hold back minions so I can reload. Then turn 5 rolls around, and he's like, all right, this is Excavated Evil / Holy Nova turn. If that comes out, I need to be holding back minions, so he hold backs again. But turn 6, he's made the read. There's no Alkanized Circle. He played around it. There's no Excavated Evil, and now he's just in there with the whole team.
Yeah. Also, pretty important on this turn that the Darkshire Councilman was buffed out of range of Cabal Shadow Priest. He knows the list. He knows that this is a Cabal turn. He also knows, despite JJ's best efforts to convince him otherwise, that there are some dead cards in the hand.
Yeah.
Cabal is a potential one of those that could be in there. So took his highest value threats out of the way, but there can be a Taunt stolen here that gets him a little bit of board presence back with the second 1/1, but there is a Knife Juggler on the board. So this is unlikely to end too fantastically for him. Plus, he is going to get hit extremely hard in the face by a Darkshire Councilman.
Yeah, if the juggle goes face or if the juggle goes on the 2/1, I believe that's lethal. Oh no, the board space issues here is the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, so if he trades in the 1/1 Imp, getting it off the board, then he can play both of the minions, and he has the chance for lethal with a juggle to the face from either of these minions.
Well, here we go. Abusive Sergeant gets in there. Juggle number 1 goes
There we
straight
go.
where the place is, not wasting any time. Slugg is slowly climbing his way back into this game and slowly but surely turning this game into a bit of a slugfest.
Yeah, it's tied up 2-2 now. JJ has to fall back on his Pirate Warrior. Traditionally speaking, Pirate Warrior, not the greatest deck against Zoo.
Yeah, I mean, cards such as Imp Gang Boss generally tend to devour any aggro deck that you try and play against it, 'cause it's just way too efficient at picking apart any aggro minions that you put up against it. What I will say for the Pirate Warrior is there is no deck in Hearthstone that gets you as fast as this deck gets you when it draws well.
Yeah.
And Zoo is vulnerable to that kind of strategy. It was vulnerable to Face Hunter classically, but that had extra factors in it, such as Explosive Trap, Unleash the Hounds. But the relentless damage of what Hunter could do back in the day was a big, big problem for Zoo. And the damage output, you know, before turn 6 with this Warrior deck is just insane. You know, this is one of the decks that just kills Reno locks before they get to play Reno.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we see JJ keeping the upgrade here, one of those key cards that sometimes can totally swing a matchup. Finley off the top, they're extremely powerful. It's a 1/3 body. That's the most important part about it. Not also the fact it changes your hero power into something that's actually useful for the matchup. But the 1/3 body at the early stages of the game contests a lot of Zoo's potential 1-drops. It just lines up really well against Possessed Villager, Argent Squire. It's just a good stat minion overall. It lines up well against Abusive Sergeant, too. Just doesn't line up well against Flame Imp if Slugg has Flame Imp, but other than that, pretty good.
Yeah, usually the dream scenario when you're playing an aggro deck against Zoo is Finley plus Abusive Sergeant. That's the opening that you almost always want, because then you cover all your opponent's potential options. Again, Flame Imp is the only, quote, bad one, but you still deal with it. All the 1/3s get traded into for value, Squire gets dealt with, etc. But all that draw, though, is huge.
Yeah, he can get N'Zoth's mate first down, upgrade the weapon, and he's able to take out the Voidwalker. Suddenly, this bad matchup is looking pretty good because a 2/4 weapon is insane against Zoo.
And on top of that, off the Finley, he got the Warlock hero power, so he can now actually simulate the Zoo experience himself and actually, like, just keep refilling on cards. His cards are just card for card more aggressive than Slugg, so he's going to be the one able to push initiative a lot of the time because he has that weapon to defend his presence as well.
It's actually insane here. Pirate Warrior clawing its way back.
That's a whiff, though.
Yeah, Arcanite Reaper's a big whiff. He has a lot of potential whiffs, and
Oh
he's
my
gotten most of them. His potential whiffs remaining in the deck has gone down, though. So
that's true.
He has a higher chance of drawing cards that are playable pretty soon. But also, he's almost at that critical point where he has enough damage. Like, sure, the Warlock's still at 30, but we're getting there.
That's okay. So assuming the Mortal Strike actually like gets fireball value and not just the 4 damage, that's 24 damage in hand plus 4 from the weapon that we have right now.
Yeah.
So
28, 1 tap.
yeah, I mean,
And everything to the face from then on.
yeah, and no taunt drawn ever.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But you can assume you're going to draw more damage, though.
Yes.
So you can assume you'll find ways to wiggle through a taunt. Hopefully you don't have to Arcanite Reaper a taunt. That's the nightmare scenario, though, when your opponent's Voidwalker is stopping 5 damage.
Right.
Imp Gang boss comes out. It's really resilient on the board. It's just a bit slow most of the time, but JJ does not have great ways to clear it. He could go for the Heroic Strike and sink 6 damage into it and then go for the 50-50 Flame Juggler if he wants to fight for the board. Or you could go the other route and start committing to the all-face line right now.
Yeah, you can also hit your opponent in the face for a third of his life right now.
Yeah. That's like the decision you have to make is the board worth it to take? Is it worth it to spend 6 damage and your turn to kill the Imp Gang boss, or is it more worth it for you in the long run just to jam all of the damage in the face? And he's really just trying to calculate how the game's going to proceed. What if my opponent has Defender of Argus? How do I react in that scenario? And it looks like he is going to decide on clearing. Which line do you like better there?
I mean, I went silent there because I was considering it all as well, but I mean, the one saving grace in this situation is that last 2-1 weapon charge that you have, because that's your last kind of board control tool that you have available to you. Nothing else in your hand really says board control, it all says face, but as you said, high pressure situation, you know, everything on the line here, game 5, so do you put yourself in a position where you lose to a single Defender of Argus? Like that, I mean, because you do at that point.
Yeah, you do.
If you commit at that point, if the card Defender of Argus is drawn, you have lost.
Well, you have to sack an Arcanite Reaper into it, right? You had Arcanite
Yeah.
Reaper charge. Your opponent has a 2-3 and a 1-1 on the board after the fact. It's not that much pressure coming at you, but the damage starts stacking up really quick, and you just missed an entire turn of damage. Just calculating out how many turns JJ would need to disperse all of the damage, I do like going for the board control, because if you see in his hand rate, like, the Mortal Strike is not very flexible. The Arcanite Reaper is the complete opposite of flexible. That takes 2 turns guaranteed to get dispersed, and your weapon takes turns to get dispersed. So I do think his line is a little bit better than going all face, just because it requires so many turns of ignoring Azu's board.
Sure, I like it. The Doomguard drop does discard, Defender of Argus #1 from Slugg. So that is the slight silver lining right now for JJ. The bad news is that there is a 5-7 on the board and that he is the guy under pressure right now. 29 still for Slugg. He has not tapped a single time.
Yeah.
That is Flame Juggler damage that has hit him in the face.
Yeah, but he has no cards. JJ is getting to that point where he is outvaluing the zoo, fighting for the board aggressively enough to completely outvalue it. He's got the green skin the following turn to upgrade his weapon to fight down things if Dark Iron Dwarf came out, but Forbidden Ritual doesn't really die too efficiently to Fiery Works, and there's no answer in the Pirate Warrior deck to a bunch of 1/1s.
There certainly isn't. Greenskin going to come down. This is 4 damage going in this turn. There's another 4 next turn. He's threatening 11 more on the board, but this never all gets through because of the trades. There's also 4 staring back at him the other way, plus a Dark Iron Dwarf Brand Bronzebeard, which is 8 already.
Yeah, you can't really go all face and set your opponent to 1. You're kind of afraid of dying a little bit. There's 15 damage staring you in the face. So you could potentially tie it to some combination of face warrior cards, but I would like to see him just kind of go with the Brand, go with the Dark Iron Dwarf, trade the buffed up minion in, and then clear the board. And
whoa! He says there are not 2 cards that beat him right now.
Let's see if he... Yeah, maybe he is right, though. 2 Heroic Strikes.
2 Heroic Strikes are gone. 1
Mortal
Mortal Strike is gone.
So what would it need to be that kills him? There's Leroy Jenkins plus what other
Abusive
damage?
Sergeant #2?
10, 15, 21, 23. Yeah, that would kill him. If there's Abusive Sergeant in the deck.
Right.
But there's usually not, but there is usually a South Sea Deckhand. We've only seen one of those.
Which is the same thing.
So there is some 2 combination cards to kill him. He could potentially know it's Arcanite Reaper being held in the hand, but I think at that point you have to also assume it could possibly be
Leroy, right.
Yeah, which makes it a top deck away with 2 draws at it. Because it's a 1-mana card, and the Leroy's 5, and then you have the 2 extra mana to tap that turn as well. So I think it was a little risky.
He's put into 1, so the tap can't happen.
Okay, the tap can't happen. Okay,
Yeah.
then it's just the top deck.
Yes.
So if you assume that the only way is the top deck South Sea Deckhand, and there's what, like, there's got to be like 15, 17 cards left, then...
Yeah.
So yeah, you win almost every time.
Yes.
Is the other line...
Well, I mean, we'll have a chance to talk to him
Okay,
about
yeah,
his
sure,
thinking in
sure.
a second anyway. Nimsh, how did you feel about that series? Crazy thing, JJ going down.
Oh man, like I just have to say that it seems like, as you've mentioned, emulating the zoo experience is not the zoo, and actually zoo wins when you try to emulate the experience. And also, like, turning it down to the Slugfest was quite interesting. But Slugg is here with us, so congratulations, man. You took down JJ. Like, we talked a bit before that match, and I told you, like, JJ is not immortal. You can actually win against him.
I was so nervous just because I made so many mistakes in my top 16 game. I was so nervous in that game that I just tilted it all the way. So I don't know if I made any mistakes throughout these games, but he drew so bad. I'm so sad for him.
Let's check straight away. That last turn where you went all face and put it to 1.
Yeah.
You have studied the deck list harder than we have. We've looked at it. Did you like calculate there were not 2 cards that killed you in that situation?
Yeah, of course. Like those, like it should be. I actually.
So does JJ not run Leroy Jenkins then?
Yeah, he does. But like,
okay.
I don't know. I just felt it was better that not giving him that card. Because
Usually when you can make the zoo only have 1 card, it's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, well, not zoo in this case, but Pirate Warrior.
Near enough.
Yeah.
Aggro
Close-
deck with
close
life
enough.
tap. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, tell me more about your road to this victory. Like, how was overall DreamHack for you? This is your second DreamHack, right?
Yeah, it was. Last DreamHack, Dragon Albert, my teammate, he went to top 16. Where I mean, I went like 4 and 3, and then I didn't play the rest just because I wouldn't make it through the tiebreak anyway. I didn't know about the Goza points though. But anyway, well, I think JJ should have banned my Warlock just because he would have. I think he would have had more favorable matchups anyway. But yeah, I think that would have won him the game actually.
Well, he was really close to like, if he wins Rogue versus Warlock, then he wins the set, right? But
but he only runs 1 Sab, and that just makes my Hunter better, and just I don't know. I don't. Also, like against Sue, a Sab is pretty good with tempo. Like I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. And you are the winner. You're here with us. So, who are you practicing with? Like, are you just jamming ladder, or do you have like specific practice partners, like the team?
No, I have my teammate Janas. He's really good. He's also the one provided the Hunter list, which might seem troll, but it's actually good. It's just
Yeah, how has Gladiator's Longbow and Princess Hyron been performing throughout the Swiss rounds?
Princess Hyron is instead of Stranghorn Tiger.
Okay.
It's not better against rogues, but it's just a solid minion. And if you hit like a Savannah Hymen against druids or warriors, it's just so good. And the Gladiator's Longbow is really good against rogue, shaman, so many classes actually.
All right, and the next match you're going to face either Maverick or Frozen. Who do you want to face? Have you studied all the deck lists?
Both. Like I 3-0'd both of them in the Swiss rounds.
Ooh, nice.
Wow. All right.
All right.
He doesn't care. Just bring them on. Just line them up. We'll beat them. That's the plan.
Definitely.
Safe to say you're very confident going into the rest of the tournament. So if someone were to be betting on all of the games, they should be betting on you.
Well, I would.
Some of the confidence is shaking.
I would never bet on Hearthstone.
Okay. And so
Good
not,
answer.
you're not that
Never.
confident. You're just semi-confident.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Scale 1 to 10.
I'm pretty confident that I'll make it to the finals. Maybe not, but yeah. That's it.
All right, if you face the guys and you won versus them, it shouldn't be that difficult to win versus them again.
Well, it depends what they ban and stuff, but we'll see.
Stop trying to get the poor guy to say he's just going to win the tournament.
All right. Yeah, it's good confidence anyway. Good luck in the next match, guys. Do you have any more questions?
No, I'm good. Well played. That was a really, really exciting series. That last game was pretty crushing, but other than that, I think you played very, very well. So yeah, well done.
All right, thank you so much. And guys, we'll be heading to a break and then prepare the next match for you. Stay tuned for more Hearthstone.